So before I start talking about Iran, which is what we really have to talk about, I have to tell you what I saw in New York because it has given me a new theory of Donald Trump, which I haven't heard anybody else say or anybody else notice. Now, you have to understand, I'm in New York a lot. I'm in at least 3 times, 2 or 3 times a year. So it's not like things change vastly when I go from one time to another. But I'm there for Christmas. It's freezing cold, absolutely freezing, like 15 degrees on a good day. And first of all, the city is booming. I mean, everything is great. This Christmas is obviously going well. Everybody's happy. Everybody's flush. But I started to notice that first people were aggressively saying Merry Christmas. And it's not just me. People had stopped saying Merry Christmas. They had started saying Happy Holidays. And even I, the most politically incorrect human being on earth, the person who really, I'm not politically correct because I don't pay enough attention to be politically correct. I don't care what people say is politically correct. But even I had stopped saying it, kind of on the idea that I was offending people or something like this. And suddenly people were looking you in the eye. I mean, I'm not the only person who noticed this because I started talking to people about it and they all said, yeah, oh, it's definitely happening. People were looking you in the eye and going, Merry Christmas. And it was kind of like, I thought, okay, like I'm already having a Merry Christmas, but thanks for saying it. But it was aggressive. The other thing that happened is I frequently, always, if I can, open the door for women or allow women to enter elevators first. Maybe 5 or 6 times, a woman turned to me and said, that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. But like that, not like intentionally, not like thanks a lot. Oh, how nice. Thank you. It was like turning to me, facing me, looking me in the eye, saying, the culture is changing. The culture is Trumpifying. The culture is changing, and it is changing in a dynamic way beneath the surface. So people, this is New York, right? This is the heart of liberal darkness. This is a place where I heard people make the argument that Kim Jong-un wasn't so bad because if Donald Trump disliked him, he couldn't be so bad. But the culture changes, as I keep trying to tell conservatives, the culture changes almost unseen, almost against people's will. It just changes. And this is something that is happening. Now, I have 2 things I want to say about this. The first is my old theory, the theory I kind of introduced at the end of last year, which is that Donald Trump is Randall Patrick McMurphy. And for those of you who don't remember One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I now is an old book and an old movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is about an insane asylum that is run by Nurse Ratched. And Nurse Ratched pretends to be the sweet, motherly, all-protecting, all-loving mother figure, but in fact is a castrating horror of a nightmare who keeps these men sort of stuck in their own insanity and grinding their own wheels and really undercuts their manhood at every turn. Read Hillary Clinton. Randall Patrick McMurphy is a kind of a jerk. He's a rowdy, obscene, violent, law-breaking character, but he is the one person who is willing to stand up to Nurse Ratched because he hasn't gotten any restraints on his personality. His personality is so out of whack that he is willing to stand up to Nurse Ratched no matter what it costs, which ultimately, of course, is the question of the story. My point about Donald Trump was that, yes, he is rude. He is outlandish. He does things that I may not approve of in terms of my life, but he has broken this soft tyranny, and it is the soft tyranny of insanity. When I compare America to an insane asylum, I'm not kidding. When you consider, think about this for a minute. Because, it's kind of like dealing with your mother-in-law, or, not to use a cliche, but dealing with some relative that you don't like, and you think she's saying hostile things about you, and you think that every comment she makes is secretly hostile, but you can never convince anybody else because she never says anything that's openly hostile. So she says, that's a nice dress, and what she means is you look like an idiot, but you can't. You said, well, she said it was a nice dress, and you think, well, that's okay, but no, it's not. And so stuff happens in America. Stuff happens that we know is bad and we protest it, but we don't know in our hearts it's bad. We don't really feel how bad it is. So consider this for a minute. Surely the greatest problem of our time in terms of enemies, in terms of foreign enemies, is radical Islam, is Islam. Islamic terrorism. Now, the big question about Islamic terrorism is it inherent in the Islamic philosophy? Is terrorism inherent in the Quran and in Islamic belief? Or is it a cancer that has grown on Islamic belief? Both those things are possible. I would like to hear experts debate that at length. I'm not sure. I can't really say. I don't feel like I have a deep enough relationship to the Quran or to Islam to know whether Islamic terrorism is somehow inherent in the faith or if it's a cancer on the faith. That's open to debate. For 8 years, we had a president who would not say the word Islam in conjunction with terrorism. There's only one kind of terrorism in the world today. It's Islamic terrorism. That's the only kind there is. Everything else is an outlier. Everything else, obviously there are going to be other kinds of terrorists, but this is so small. It's such a piddling fraction of the daily murder and mayhem that goes on in the name of Allah that, this is a major issue. For 8 years, the president of the United States, the most powerful nation on earth, would not say the word Islam in connection with terrorism. That's not bad or good. That's nuts. That's insane. That's why I'm talking about an insane asylum. That's why I'm talking about Randall Patrick McMurphy. The same thing with men and women. Men and women are the same. Men and women, there's no difference between men and women. Anybody who says there is sexist. A man can be a woman. A man can declare himself a woman. All this stuff. Insane. Donald Trump has broken through that insanity. And here's the second part of my theory. And this is the new part of my theory. All right. This is a theory. I'm just going to put it forward and we can think about it all year. We'll come back to it through the year to see if I'm right. People like Donald Trump even when they hate him. Okay, this is my theory, that people like being free of insanity, even if the guy who did it, who freed them, is Randall Patrick McMurphy, somebody they don't want over their house. People are happy. People are happier to be able to say Merry Christmas. It's insane not to say Merry Christmas. It's insane to question every American holiday. Thanksgiving is bad because Indians died, and Columbus Day is bad because Indians died, and Christmas is bad because Indians died, or whatever happens on Christmas. I don't know what happened on Christmas to the Indians, but I'm sure it was bad. So all this stuff is insane, and people are happy to be free of insanity. And I think that this is something that is infecting the culture. I'm talking about New York now. It's something that is infecting the culture of America, even as CNN lies and NBC lies and the New York Times lies. Listen, Donald Trump made his usual radio address and his end of the year address. Listen to the way he talks, okay? This is cut number 3. Listen to the way Donald Trump talks. Obviously, he's praising his own accomplishments. He's saying we accomplished all these wonderful things, healthcare, tax reform, and jobs, and the stock market, blah, 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 and ISIS is destroyed. He's all touting his own things. But just listen to the way he talks about the country. This is cut number 3.
Optimism is everywhere. Enthusiasm is booming. And the thrilling American adventure has never looked brighter. We are facing old challenges with new solutions, and we are seizing new opportunities with brimming confidence and boundless resolve. Because of you, your patriotism, your devotion, your love for your family, we will be able to pass on the blessings of American liberty and prosperity to our children and our grandchildren. Together, we are protecting our magnificent heritage and reaching for glorious destiny.
Glorious destiny. Optimism is everywhere. America is great again. Now listen to Obama in 2013. Now remember, this is his second term, right? So this clown has been in office, mucking things up for now 5 years. Listen to Obama talk about America.
The combined trends of increased inequality and decreasing mobility pose a fundamental threat to the American dream, our way of life, and what we stand for around the globe. We know that there are airport workers and fast food workers and nurse assistants and retail salespeople who work their tails off and are still living at or barely above poverty. And that's why it's well past the time to raise a minimum wage that in real terms right now is below where it was when Harry Truman was in office.
So the American dream is dying, says Obama, and the only way we can fix it is by raising the minimum wage, which is all the government can ever do is help the minimum, right? All it can ever do is codify mediocrity. And that was Who wouldn't like Trump better? And Trump's solution, Obama's solution is a minimum wage. Trump's solution, as he puts it, is jobs, jobs, jobs. In that same speech is jobs, jobs, jobs. And let me tell you something else. This was on the Wall Street Journal front page this morning. Is for the first time in, who knows how long, wages are starting to rise. They're starting to rise. Why? Because there's so many jobs that they have to pay more to get the best people, right? When there are a lot of jobs, it becomes a buyer's market. It's great. This is a great thing. The wages are suddenly going up. It didn't take the government. It took the government to get out of the way. It always takes the government to get out of the way. Of course people like Donald Trump. Of course they want to hear that things are going well. Look, you can say, well, Obama was telling the harsh truth and Trump is lying, but I don't think so. I think Trump is talking something helping to talk something into existence. Part of the rise in the stock market has been the simple sound of optimism coming out of the president's mouth, along with the rollback in regulations and the tax cuts and all this. Part of it has just been the sound of optimism coming out of this guy. Of course people like him, and I think people like him who think they hate him. I think this is going to show in the midterms. I think a lot of the polls are off. I can't say what the midterms are going to be. You usually lose seats in the midterms and it's still too early to tell. But all I can say is that something is happening in the culture underneath all the talk and all the debates about this and that. Is something positive is happening because people are responding to the tone of this president. And I said to somebody while I was in New York, I think I'm having a Trump conversion experience because suddenly the way he talks is really amusing and entertaining and uplifting to me, whereas before I was always a little doubtful of it. So we'll see. We will see. But I think people like this president more than they will admit and more than they even know.